The unrest in North Africa over the past month is causing plenty of concern in Italy. Over the past 24 hours, 1,500 migrants fleeing Tunisia and Libya have landed on the tiny Sicilian island of Lampedusa, adding to the more than 6,000 who have arrived since mid-February. With just 850 beds, the island's holding centre is under-equipped to cope with the arrivals. The Italian government wants the rest of the European Union to take in some of the would-be migrants from North Africa, with the EU's border control agency estimating that up to 1.5 million people might be heading for Italian shores. Europe correspondent Emma Alberici travelled to Lampedusa for Lateline and filed this report.
It's becoming an all-too-familiar sighting for the Italian Coast Guard. Old wooden boats crammed full of Tunisians fleeing their homeland and headed for the tiny Sicilian island of Lampedusa. Just 130 kilometres across the Mediterranean, Lampedusa is closer to North Africa than it is to Italy. It's long been considered the gateway to Europe.
The Italian Coast Guard has tonight found 7 boats on its radar, so we've come out here to see if they're okay and whether they need to be rescued, given some sort of assistance to come into shore. And while we've come out here, we've discovered this boat, which had before now gone completely unnoticed. There are at least 50 people on board, and we've seen also a young boy of about 4 or 5 years old and at least 2 women.
For a boat like this travelling at full speed, it will take 28 hours to reach Italy from Tunisia, but most are at sea for 2 or 3 days. It's the ones they don't find that troubles Captain Vittorio Alessandro.
Naturally, we're all concerned because weather conditions out there are not good. We know what we can do. The worry is about what we can't. 2 people have already been lost in the sea, but what about those we can't see, who don't hit our radar? There is a real possibility that there are many more out there that we couldn't save because we don't know they were out there.
As day breaks on this island paradise, a shocking reality dawns on those who've risked their lives to escape the chaos of Tunisia. 1,000 in one night, flocking to a holding centre that sleeps just 800 and was already at full capacity. They wait here for a flight that will take them to be processed in other parts of Italy that have already taken in 7,000 Tunisian migrants since the fall of President Ben Ali. The Italian government has declared a state of emergency. The United Nations Refugee Agency, the UNHCR in Lampedusa, is worried about the absence of boats coming from Libya.
We haven't had a flow from Libya, although, we need to be ready in case there should be a flow from Libya. We know that there are persons of concerns to UNHCR in Libya, mainly people from Somalia, from Eritrea, from Sudan, that used to land in Lampedusa until 2009. What we are advocating is that governments, when they are evacuating their own nationals, also keep in mind that there are people there that cannot go to their embassy, that don't have this luxury of being evacuated by their own countries as they're fleeing their own countries, and they should keep them in mind in the evacuation plans.
In 2008, 36,000 asylum seekers came to Lampedusa from Eritrea, Somalia and Nigeria, boarding boats in Libya. Then Silvio Berlusconi signed a friendship agreement with Muammar Gaddafi. Rome handed $5 billion to Tripoli, and in return, Libya stopped the boats. The UNHCR is now concerned about the plight of those sub-Saharan Africans who can no longer flee to Europe through Libya.
Right now, what we hear is that they are inside their homes and they are trapped. They're having a really hard time getting out of the house, accessing food and health care, and this is because they are scared of the repercussions, as there were sub-Saharan Africans used in Gaddafi's militias.
As last night's boats continue to make their way to the port, the customs police intercept one fishing boat so small it beggars belief that 81 people crossed the Mediterranean on board. The only woman among them is one of 3 suffering from hypothermia and transported to hospital. Lampedusa's mayor, Bernardino de Rubas, is asking Europe to help shoulder the burden and open its doors to those caught up in the African rebellion.
My concern is that Italy cannot cope with this situation on its own. We cannot continue to take all these people in. Italy can't be left alone to deal with this crisis. At some point, Europe will need to pitch in to help these poor people, of whom there are so many.
As for the 5,000 people who live on Lampedusa, they're praying that the tourists from the north aren't put off by the migrants hailing from the south.
We hope that Italy is not going to be left alone to deal with this big problem, that the European Union, even America, gives us a hand here.
The island is so small and we don't know what's heading our way. Might be Libyans. Libyans are scary, not like the Tunisians, who are nice and friendly. But we don't know what sort of people the Libyans really are.
What I hear is that people are concerned about the island's tourism industry. They say tourists won't come because they're scared of the immigrants. The migrants are scaring the tourists away.
In the past 7 weeks, more than 80 Tunisian vessels have been dumped in what's come to resemble a boat cemetery on Lampedusa. There are more at the port waiting to be destroyed. The race is on to find a solution to the crisis before the summer approaches. Fishing and tourism are the only sources of income here. Emma Alberici, Lateline.